Howdy, everybody. I thought I'd do like a little lesson on just some exercises that can help you be a better bluegrass guitar player. These are just kind of like warm up exercises that I often teach to my students. So I thought I'd share it here for them, but also for you. And it's fairly basic and I would say simple stuff, though not necessarily easy. But each of these exercises are just kind of ways to get your hands to work together and kind of think about the way that you're moving and think about your technique. A lot of like bluegrass fiddle tunes and stuff are kind of played out of a first position. So the exercise that I like to start people with is just have them splay their fingers out 1, 2, 3, 4 like this with your first finger on the first fret, second finger on the second, third on the third, fourth on the fourth. Seems simple enough. And a lot of times I don't have them use the open strings for this. I just have them use 1, 2, 3, 4 because it's a good way to coordinate the down up motion with your right hand. You know, a lot of flat picking is alternate picking. There are a lot of people who have expanded on that, but it's a good idea to kind of get used to the alternate picking where every other eighth note is a downstroke or an upstroke. Really, that's a great technique to learn where the downbeats are going to be downstrokes, the upbeats, the offbeats, the ands are going to be upstrokes. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and that pretty much stays even if you like have a syncopated beat where you play a downstroke on the first beat and then you wait. The next stroke will be an upstroke only if it's on the and of a number. So if it's on the and of 2, still an upstroke, even if you're playing a dotted quarter note or something like that. That stuff's tricky. We'll talk about that maybe in a future lesson. But this is a great way of kind of coordinating that because all of the odd frets, you can pay a lot of attention to your left hand. All of the odd frets are going to be downstrokes. The even frets are going to be upstrokes. So down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, etc. Now, that's a pretty straight up exercise. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. You pick each note individually. You move to the next string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't play the open strings. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. But there's a lot of stuff to think about when you're doing the technique. First of all, it's a great right hand exercise to think about how you're anchoring your hand. There's lots of different ways to anchor your hand when you're playing lead. There's a lot of players now who are great who float their hand. All of that is fine. You know, Doc Watson, Tony Rice anchored their pinky fingers when they played. You see, like David Greer, a lot of times will anchor the palm of his hand. I've seen a lot of people do that kind of stuff, and sometimes they float their hand. There's a lot of great players that do that. Whatever's the most comfortable for you, choose the one that allows you to play accurately, to play cleanly. And choose that anchor. The thing I'll discourage is don't anchor in two places. So don't anchor your pinky finger and the palm of your hand at the same time because that really restricts your movement. But you can anchor one or the other if that makes sense. Or float your hand, which is something that I really admire but I don't do. But there's a lot of amazing players. I think there's a lot of advantages to floating your hand, but it's a lot more difficult. So that's kind of some things to pay attention to. Now, with my right hand, I generally play the lead notes, any lead notes over the rosette, so over the back side of the sound hole. And that's kind of my zone for like a good combination. Because if we play the string way back here, it's really twangy. If we play it really forward, there's not a lot of edge on the front of the note. If we split the difference, there's a good attack. There's also a harmonic right there, so you might get some extra tonality by picking the strings right there, just kind of in general around that zone. When I play the strings, I hit the strings flat as I possibly can with the pick, with a good solid chime. I don't want the pick to flop around. I use a thick pick that has no flex, so that I get a big beefy bluegrass sound out of it. So make sure you're not tipping your pick this way or tipping your pick backwards, but trying to hit it as parallel as possible with your right hand. That's one of the things to pay attention to. In the left hand, you want to make sure that you have a good splay. I've seen a lot of people when they sit down to play lead, like their hand is turned this way, and then they have a really hard time even just reaching to the fourth fret. Now I have long slender fingers. But I've seen a lot of players, who have shorter fingers, and it's not really an excuse to have short fingers, because even if I were to use just this segment of my fingers, I can still reach each of the frets. The problem is people don't put the space in between their fingers and do the reach, or they point their fingers all in the same direction. So you can see my fingers are kind of pointed towards my face. If I move them vertically, like even though I have long fingers, if my fingers are pointed that way, I really struggle to reach beyond the 4th fret. But if my hands are like this, then I have all this like splay that I can reach with my hands. So make sure that you have a good splay between your fingers, that your ring finger always wants support. So it's going to want to mash up against your ring finger or mash up against your pinky finger, because it always wants support. So a lot of times this is kind of the culprit of people's stumbling blocks. So, you could practice just moving your ring finger around while your other fingers stay anchored, just to kind of gain some independence. But you don't want to have no space in between this finger and then have this pinky finger really reaching. You want to have nice space in between each of those fingers. But you can see when I put my finger down, this finger's kind of pointed straight up in that direction, the pinky finger's straight up in that direction here. And then as I move across the fingerboard, my hand doesn't rotate or anything. I just bend my fingers across. So my thumb is kind of down at the back of the neck here. And I generally try to keep my hand super relaxed. So if I hang my hand and then turn it over, my thumb comes back across and touches those 2 fingers right there, just in the most natural position. Then when I put my hand on the guitar, that's where my thumb is, if you could see that, just straight across from the middle of those 2 fingers. If you feel like any tension in your thumb here, in your palm of your hand, in the back of your hand, that's a problem. You want to be as relaxed as you possibly can. So when you get into that position, then you're going to move your fingers across like this, and practice each one of those strings. And try to move your fingers individually. You could see there's kind of a flow of my fingers. And you practice putting it down 1, 2, 3, 4, but the other thing you can practice is when to lift your fingers up to move to the next string. So I generally go 1, and then 2 is an upstroke. My first finger is still down. Then I play down on my ring finger, but my first finger comes up when my ring finger goes down. And then I play up on my 4th finger, and my middle finger comes up. Then I play first finger, both these fingers come up. They want to move together anyhow. 2, 3, 4. Hopefully you can see that. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that there's kind of a smooth flow, because if I keep all those fingers down, then I have to move it as a mass to the next string, and there's a chance for hiccup. And when you're doing this fast, you want everything to flow, right? Like that. So there's a lot of things to pay attention to with this exercise, but that's a great one to kind of get started. And if you want to warm up that way, it's great to kind of get your hands coordinated. Sometimes I'll sit and just play that for 5 minutes or something in the morning, or 10 minutes in the morning, to get myself warmed up. The other great exercise is, if you know a G major scale, a lot of times in bluegrass we use an open G major scale, which is this scale, right? That's a really great scale to know. A lot of what you play as a bluegrass guitar player is out of a G position. We might use a capo and move to different places, just because this voicing of the G chord has a really bluegrassy sound to it. And so because you're oftentimes playing out of a G position, and a lot of bluegrass songs are in a major scale anyhow, it's a good idea and worth your time to really know this G major scale, so that you can play it as much as you might need. But I think sometimes it's not super interesting to just go, etc. I think a lot of times, and it's also not super useful, but there's a lot of fiddle tunes that kind of use that scale in a different way, which some people would call a folded scale. So a good exercise is to play that scale, but kind of you start it and then you kind of go back and repeat notes. So you would go like, down again. Those are a couple of really good basic warm-ups. Now, the reason that I think that that folded scale is so useful, because there's a lot of fiddle tunes that kind of just have that sort of folded scale movement in it, like even Blackberry Blossom. It's kind of part of that folded scale, or the second part of Bill Cheatham, or sorry, the second part of Big Sandy River. Are kind of the same kind of movement with that folded scale. So that's just a couple of like little warm-up exercises that will help your flat picking. There's a lot of others. There's a lot of other things that you can work on to pay attention to, but that's good stuff to kind of get you coordinated and warmed up. Happy practicing. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you can. See ya. Hey, one more thing about that exercise. If you feel like you've got this 1, 2, 3, 4, and you feel like you've nailed that pattern down, you can make it a little more complex by changing up your fingers, like 1, 3, 2, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4. And then you can go down again. Whatever pattern you want. 1, 4, 2, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 1, 4, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 4, whatever. You can kind of mix and match it up and go back and forth. That's a great way of getting your hands coordinated. But don't do that until you feel really confident that you can play this. And usually what I try to do is get it into my muscle memory to where I can play it and talk to you, read the newspaper, think about other things, that it's just in my muscle memory the way that I'm moving. Once you've got it there, you can move on to other things. Just a little tip. Thanks. See ya.